Aloha, everyone. I'm Tracy Medeiros, CEO and founder of Medeiros Consulting, and I'm so excited to be here. First, let's give a big thank you to Amy for pulling us all together. She has an amazing lineup of women for this summit, and I frankly can't wait to just dive into some of the other presentations. But for us right now, I want to keep this casual. I want us to pretend we're sitting at a cafe, coffee in hand, and we're talking about the messy, beautiful reality of being business owners because that's just reality. I don't think we actually talk about that messy reality of being a business owner. One of my favorite topics is systems, but not the boring, rigid kind that makes you want to fall asleep, or maybe, frankly, you're just a little bit scared of. Maybe you remember those big binders from your old corporate days, or you've seen them on TV. I see a lot of TV shows where they kind of like make fun of those things. But I want us to talk about the simple, customized systems that give you freedom, overflow, and a business that actually feels good to run. So, one of my core truths is that complexity doesn't make you look more professional. It doesn't make your business stronger. It could actually slow you down. And simplicity is the secret. That's how you scale, how you free yourself, and how you build something sustainable. So I want you guys to know that I don't just teach this stuff. I have always been a systems thinker. I am a corporate refugee and was in the corporate world for over 14 years and have always only done operations, strategic planning, systems, optimizing departments, and simplifying. So, as I did this for my corporate career for billion-dollar companies, I in turn, later down the road, back in 2016, did this for myself. I turned this into Medeiros Consulting and did this on my own. But one of the things that I thought for years, corporate kind of groomed me. And then in my early years of my own business, it was still the case. I thought that fancier and more elaborate, the more fancier and elaborate, the better. If I had a 40-page SOP with 27 color-coded tabs, that was my version of success. And let me tell you, they looked gorgeous on paper. They were magnificent. And keep in mind that all of this started back in my corporate days, so it actually suited its purpose. The 27 color-coded tabs made things easier for the 27 different kinds of people or departments that had to have their hands in this SOP. But for me, in my business, where it was just me and sometimes a VA and sometimes some other contractors, but in practice, it was like quicksand. It slowed me down. It limited my capacity and eventually led me straight to burnout. So, what I finally realized, and like I said, I'm a little stubborn. So, it wasn't just corporate because it was suited for success in corporate. But those fancy, elaborate SOPs and processes in a small business with very limited owners, it just was quicksand. It really was. So fancy systems aren't better systems. They're just heavier. And sooner or later, heavy breaks. So today, as we're drinking our coffee, I want us to reframe what systems actually are. They're not restrictions. They are invisible support. It's not about the spreadsheets. It's about peace. They're not cages. I know a lot of people say that systems are restricting. They can't do things as spontaneously as they like to. And it just really holds them back. When in actuality, they're freedom. The right systems disappear into the background and they free you up to do the things that you're brilliant at. You don't even think of them as systems anymore. You think of them as habits or routines or rituals. So, just to give you an example of this, and this is one of my favorite examples because it is an example of many things, but we all brush our teeth, right? Or at least I hope we all brush our teeth. I know we all brush our teeth. I'm not even going to say that. We all brush our teeth. However, the way you brush your teeth is probably completely different. Or I know, I'm not even going to say probably. It is completely different from how everybody else brushes their teeth. Now you're going to be like, oh, what do you mean? How does that happen? Well, for one, some of you may floss before you brush your teeth. Others may floss after you brush your teeth. Some of you may brush top, all your top teeth, and then you brush all your bottom teeth. Or maybe you cut your mouth in half, and half the left side you brush top and bottom, and then you do the right side top and bottom. Some of you guys have special fancy tongue scrapers. Some of us just use our toothbrush. There's so many different ways to brush your teeth that it's all catered to how you want to brush your teeth. Nobody else. Nobody in any coffee chat ever has somebody sat with their coffee and said, hey, how do you brush your teeth? What's the best way of doing it these days? I bet you nobody has ever done that. So I think we need to embrace that a little bit more in our business. There's so many systems like that. Laundry is another one. We all do laundry. We all do our laundry really, really well. However, some of us probably use different detergents. We probably do different spin cycles, or some of us use cold water, some of us use tap water, some of us use hot water, or it depends on what kind of fabrics we have. We sort the colors differently. There's people who don't dry their clothes, they hang dry their clothes. There's so many different ways of doing your laundry that we probably don't even do our laundry the same way. And I think we need to embrace that in business a little more than what we do. So right now, I think is a great time to do a little quick gut check. So if your business feels heavy right now, if every day feels like a slog, like you're drowning in all the day-to-day stuff, it's not you, it's your systems. Broken systems create friction. And I also want to preface this by saying you may not have broken systems. Systems are ever living, breathing entities in our business. So instead of having a broken system, you may have had an amazing system that brought you many successes, and you have just grown your business and it is no longer valid. It needs some zhooshing or some tweaks because you outgrew it. So they're either going to be broken systems or you outgrew them. And we just need to take a look at them again and zhoosh them up, like I said, and make them more relevant to right now and your growth. But they create friction, and great systems create flow. So for me, I think of systems in three different ways. They're basically how I teach systems thinking. I want us all to be systems thinkers. Like I said, I'm just built that way. I was always, even before college, I was built to think of the end product or the end result and re-engineer it and do it the most efficiently, less effort. It's just something that even as a little kid was kind of a wheelhouse for me. And I took what I was good at and just kind of built it on. So what I want you to do today is take away these three, I'm going to call them pillars, but every system, you need to think of them in these three ways. You need to think of how does it protect your energy? If you're drained, nothing else matters. How does it support your brilliance? Your system should make it easier to share your genius, not harder. And then scale your impact. Systems are what allow your work to reach more people without draining you. So now that you have these three pillars, I want you to use that and come back to it again and again whenever you are setting up a system or you're analyzing a system or you're just like in front of your computer thinking this does not have to be this hard. Go back to those 3 pillars and think of it that way. Think of how is it protecting your energy? How is it supporting your brilliance? And how is it scaling your impact? Now, I'm curious, just off the cuff, which one do you feel you need most right now? Protecting energy, supporting your brilliance, or scaling your impact? I love hearing what you guys are up to. And I would love to have you DM me. And I'm pretty much found on any platform using at Medeiros Consulting. But I would like for you to let me know. And I want to hear it comes up for you with that. Which pillar, if you had to only focus on one right now, which pillar would you focus on? So when your systems are actually working and you're in flow, your energy, your creativity, your impact, it all moves smoothly. Excuse me. That's when business starts to feel good. And let's be real, formulas aren't freedom. They're someone else's roadmap. What you deserve your own roadmap, your own blueprint, not somebody else's. I want you guys to create a blueprint or a roadmap that lets your nervous system breathe and your brilliance expand. So I want you to think about this. Whenever you hear that noise in the Ethernet out there of do this system or I use this system, follow it A, B, and C, that's somebody else's and you deserve your own. They're always only going to be designed for either that person that's teaching it. They were designed for them. It is designed based on their industry, their energy, their brilliance, so many other things, to be honest with you, their preferences in working, their team or lack of team, or there's so many things to consider. So really, you're kind of at a failure mark just starting. The other way that people come out in the internet and courses and stuff is they maybe are systems thinkers and they take an industry or they take a certain task and they pull like the median, a group of people, and they're going to say, okay, for 50% of these people, this is going to work. And it probably does. It probably will work for a little while until your energy changes, your brilliance shifts a little bit, or your impact, the definition of your impact is different from what theirs started out to be, then the system's going to fail to work as it usually did before. So that's kind of going back to that living, breathing entity in your business. As you grow and as these things change, so do your systems. We always, as system thinkers, we're always thinking about, okay, how has it been done right now? What is our growth pattern? How do we create a system that follows the growth pattern and allows us to not switch back and forth? Because that wastes time, right? Like if you say, oh, I'm going to start with a Post-it note, but you know you're also going from solopreneur to a team of 20, Post-it notes are probably not going to work, right? So we want to always make sure that our systems are going to allow us a timeline. You get to choose that timeline. It's not my timeline. My timeline right now is 10 years. I want my systems. I'm in the process of revamping, zooshing. I want my systems to like support me for the next 10 years. And then at that point, I'll think about retiring. And then they're going to change completely differently at that point. Think about it from the beginning. You are probably focused on sales and probably really only sales. If you're focusing on anything else but sales, you're focusing on like proof of concept. Is this sustainable? Is this something that I can grow with? And and create a legacy business. Or maybe it's not a legacy business, maybe it's a side hustle. So we got to think in those terms as well. But for the most part, those systems that are designed by other people are not going to work because they aren't designed for you. And if I can press anything into your brains today, it's be selfish. Create those systems. They're all about you. Unless you're, if you're at that stage where you're growing and adding team, then things change a little bit because the systems that you have now are how you do them now. I'm hoping that when you guys are at that point where you're adding team, you're adding team members that are brilliant where you are not. So then from that point, you kind of say, here's these systems that I've created. This is how we do it now. But you are on board because you're brilliant at whatever. And with your brilliance, you're going to make these even more efficient. You're going to make these even more supportive. So I think that's another important thing to think about is, okay, because even if you're a solopreneur, we should all have systems and processes in place because they're only going to support you. Think of like, we all have these days, we're not our best, but we still have to function. And we're doing something in our business, and we're the ones who created that, right? We created it. We know every step. We can do it in our sleep. But that one day we didn't have enough coffee, or traffic was horrible, taking the kids to school, the dog ran away, and you had to spend hours getting him back in the mud, whatever it is. I know I'm exaggerating, but you're doing this thing in your business, and you're like, I know I'm forgetting something. I know that I'm missing a step. And instead of spending half an hour trying to figure out what step you've missed, you can go to your SOP, go through, oh, I did that, oh, that's what I missed. That's what I got to do. That's the one thing that I was missing. And you figured it out in a minute versus the 30 minutes that you were trying to rack your brain through. It can also just, for our nervous systems, we don't have to hold all that stuff in our head. We can empty that out. We know we have our SOPs to rely on. We don't have to have it in our head, constantly taking space. We can free up space for other things. And there you go. We have saved time. Maybe it's making decisions, because to be honest with you, I think as business owners, that's all we do is make decisions. So if we can have a system in place that helps us make decisions faster or make less decisions, that's the best. Like, take the guy who is it. I'm so bad at these things. If you know me at all, my clients call them Tracyisms because I will mix cliches together. Like, I think the other day, what did I say? It was something about letting the cat out of the bag and throwing the baby out with bathwater, but I combined the two, and it was a really awkward part of the conversation. So, but that's just a little Tracyism. But basically, we have, everything written down so we don't have to rack our brains, and we save space for other things or bigger decisions. So it's definitely a win-win for our business to have systems. Now, I have a mini challenge for you guys. I want us, before you wrap up, I want you to grab a notebook or even the notes app on your phone, and I want you to jot down, what's one area in your business right now that feels heavy? And then after you have that, what would it look like if it felt easy? Now, don't worry. You don't need to have it all figured out today. That is just your first step towards flow. But that's your starting point for designing a system that actually serves you. If it felt easy, maybe it would feel easy just by adding another email sequence. Maybe it is in your email, you want to have a zero inbox. Maybe it's creating folders where certain types of emails go directly into those folders, and then you don't even have to worry about them. And when you're bored one day, you open that folder and you look at these emails that are not urgent. They may still be important, but they're not urgent, and you can look at them on your timeline, not be distracted during the day and getting into an email that could have waited until the end of the week. Maybe it's just something like that, where you set up time limits for certain activities. Maybe you say that you're only going to scroll social media for 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night, instead of get lost in that death scroll. And hours later, you're like, oh my God, what did I just do? But that's going to depend on what your 3 pillars, where your focus is, and your preference. Like, maybe you love doing something a certain way. And so for you, that's important to do it that way. That will come into play with certain milestones, certain touch points with clients. I may have different touch points with clients that are super important to me, whereas you can suffice with an email. You need to take a look at that. That's important, because some things are going to just land differently with me or anybody, really, where like you may not care if something's automated, where I'm like, no, I want to talk to them. I want to feel them. I want to, whatever, where a simple automation could suffice for you. We want to make sure we're thinking of those things. We're thinking outside of the box. And most importantly, it's all about you, right? We can think about later when you have team members and you want to include them, because you're going to be using those 3 pillars for them more than you. But as I always say, that you, as the business owner, you're the captain of the ship. So even though you're not maybe touching certain things all the time, you still need to have a brief overview of what's going on, because you're the steerer of the ship. Actual other people may be doing some things, but you need to have, some sort of cognizance about it. So with that, we can close. We can take the last sip of our coffee. And if you guys do want a little accountability, share what came up with you, tag me at Medeiros Consulting, and I would love to cheer you on, because I could literally sit here for hours talking to you about the importance of systems, and the importance of not just systems, but doing them your way, not somebody else's way, and putting the thought into them. I know one of the biggest objectives for systems is that they're too time consuming. So with that, I'm going to say sometimes we need to go a little slower to go faster. Now, one of the reasons why I love systems so much is because they're so important to me. I live in Hawaii. I have a beach down the road. And for me, I want to go to the beach. Now, the weather doesn't always cooperate, and it's not always sunny on Saturdays and Sundays. So if I want to get a morning swim in, I may have to do it on a Tuesday morning. Or maybe I want to on a Tuesday morning. I have to admit, lately I've been going swimming first thing in the morning on Wednesdays. It breaks up the week. And it's really nice just for my nervous system. So maybe it's something as simple as that. Maybe it's working the hours that your kids are at school, and only working the hours that your kids are at school. There's so many different scenarios. Maybe you are not a morning person. So why should you be up at 7:30 in the morning working or doing your morning routine? Maybe you don't even want a morning routine. Maybe you want to start work at 11. Who knows? You're the boss. You get to decide. And I think more of us need to embrace that. We need to not feel that guilt. We need to not look at our cohorts or our friends or biz besties or competitors and see how they do things. We need to do things the way that's going to suit us best. We need to analyze, what do we need for our businesses? What do we need from our businesses? And make that happen. I call myself a business design architect, because I'm not just a systems and operations consultant. I want to help you create and design businesses that support you, not the other way around. You guys need to have lives. There's so many other things that you do. You are not just a business owner. And sometimes I feel, and I've been guilty of it too, where that's all our focus is on. There was a time in my business where I didn't realize how much I was neglecting my husband because we're both pretty fairly independent people. We both have our own routines. We both do our things. But until he actually sat me down and said, hey, I don't like the fact that when we're watching TV together, because that's the only thing we can do because you don't leave the house, you're on your computer. Because I'm one of those people, if I'm bored, I will, and not that hanging out with my husband is boring, but if I'm watching like a show that's maybe more his show than me, I'm probably on my phone looking at emails. I'm one of those types of people. I love the fact that if you can do something in 2 minutes, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to wait for later. I hate sitting in a line. So I'm either talking to strangers, which also drives my husband nuts, or I'm responding to emails in line at the grocery store, or I'm sending thank you notes in the line at the grocery store, the line at the post office. I'm dreading holiday season because we are in line at the post office a lot. But those little things, it's your decision and what supports you the most. And maybe you doing thank you notes in a line at the grocery store sounds like a freaking nightmare. I get it. I totally get it. But like I said, doesn't matter. It's all about you. Okay, guys, I'm going to say last call. You guys enjoy the rest of the summit. I'm going to go hop off and enjoy one of the keynotes from today. Thank you guys for listening. And like I said, if you need anything, questions, or just some rah-rah cheering, tag me on Medeiros Consulting.